What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm. So last night we had what I think will be our last actual freeze, at least for a little while. I don't think it'll be the last one of the winter, but it's unlikely. It could be, but it's very unlikely. Our estimated last frost date is the very beginning of April. And so that's like 5 or 6 weeks from now. So I think it's very likely that it'll freeze again, but it's not forecasted in the next 10 days. Anyhow, Maya's still been working on sealing up the greenhouse, and I was a little bit nervous because the night before it had gotten to freezing and it wasn't quite as cold for quite as long. And when I looked at the temperature in my greenhouse the next morning, I can look at the record of the temperatures overnight because the device I put in there, and it had gotten down to 38 in the greenhouse, which is like 3 Celsius. So that's not great. And last night was going to be colder for longer. And everything in there, I was like, I think it'll all be fine. But I did not want to risk my little Wild Boar Farms seedling babies because I sowed most of the seeds that I had. And if I had to get more seeds, I just promoted Wild Boar Farms and they're sold out. So I was like, if these die, I'm in trouble. I'll be asking you guys to send me seeds because I don't have any more. And I sold out the place that has them. So I took them in the house. So they spent the night in the kitchen last night. I'm about to carry them back out to the greenhouse. Also, go ahead and address this before anybody points it out. My eye is really swollen right now. I've been doing so well. My skin has been doing so well. I've been feeling great. And I went and got my eyebrows waxed for the first time since before my skin broke out. So I have not gotten anything done like that since my skin broke out because my skin was breaking out super easy. And I waited and I haven't had a fresh breakout for almost a month. And yeah, it was pretty bad. I got them waxed the next day. I had like breakout all over my forehead, all over the side of my face, just like an allergic reaction, I guess, to the wax. I don't know, or it's sensitive. Never had that happen before, but obviously I'm dealing with the new things. And then this morning I woke up and my eye is like swollen so bad. I did like a compress on it and it's at least open now, so there's that, but I'm not even sure what to do about it. I figured I'd wait to see. It'll probably be better by tomorrow. Maybe overshare there, but such as, like, I love getting facials and stuff like that. My sister-in-law is an esthetician. She has a salon in Russellville, Arkansas now. After her and my brother went on the road for a year, they settled there and she opened her own place. It's called Honeymoon, and she's amazing. And so she, years ago, like, express the importance of skincare and just like pampering and stuff like that, because prior to that I was never one to get that stuff done, and I really like it now, but I haven't done anything. I've been very sparse on skincare. I've literally just used like tallow creams and stuff since my skin started breaking out, and obviously I'm not ready because this is pretty bad. I don't know how bad it's gonna look on the camera, but this morning it looked really bad. So as you can see here, I have my little tomato seedlings very thickly sown in these cups, which is how I usually do it. And once they start getting their first true leaves, I will separate them. Now some of these here are coming up and they're kind of getting stuck in the seed caps. What I do for that is always just spit on my finger and put it on there. Do that a few times and it'll loosen it up and you can take it off without decapitating your seedling. Now obviously your spit has moisture, but I was actually told that the reason that works so well is because there are enzymes in saliva that actually help break that down. Someone else told me that's not true, so I don't really know. But when I tried to Google, does saliva have enzymes that break down the seedling caps, there wasn't anything. But just getting them moist, and then, you know, sometimes they'll come right off once you put a little moisture on them. Sometimes you have to do it a few times. Obviously, if they stay stuck in the seed cap, sometimes that can happen whenever it's really dry where you're starting your seeds. And it is actually pretty humid in here, but sometimes it just happens anyway. And if they actually get really stuck, they won't live. Their leaves need to unfurl to give the plant more energy. So I was just telling Maya, I think we're gonna have to take the shade cloth off this building because like these little Mizuna mustards came up, and these are not yet leggy, but they're on the way to it. So leggy is when your seedlings come up and they don't have enough light. So they get really tall and spindly and they start flopping over, and that's not good. If that continues, they won't be able to survive. One thing that helps strengthen seedlings is to run your hands across them. You'll see me touching my seedlings all the time because that actually adds strength. Another thing is to have a fan blowing in where your seeds are. Not maybe like directly at them, but like moving the air wherever they are, because obviously you're starting seeds likely in a place that's very still and protected. I actually don't have a fan in here right now. I think what I'm gonna do is get one that hangs up kind of high. This greenhouse is a lot taller than my old one was, because here we have the pitched roof versus the shed roof that was on my old one. And I'm finding that when heating it, obviously it's getting a lot warmer up top than it is staying on the bottom because heat rises. And I'm thinking if I were to place a fan or two, maybe one on each side, kind of in the upward area pointing down, that it might help recirculate that warm air. So I'm still really just figuring this greenhouse out. We used it last year, but not until I think it was like March or maybe even early April before I moved everything in here. Maybe it was March. I think so. It didn't really freeze again after I had everything in here, if I remember correctly. And we've had the shade cloth on here. We just left it on over summer, and it's nice because like right now with the sun shining, even though it's significantly cooler outside, it's actually like 82 in here, like 27 Celsius. It's pretty warm. And if the shade cloth were off, it would be significantly warmer. Of course, we turned the fans off for me to film because it's really loud. But I think we're gonna have to take the shade cloth and just let the fans run and make sure we're opening the doors. A lot of people ask me about heating the greenhouse, and they focus a lot on heating, which in some places I'm sure is the issue. But where I live, there's a little bit of concern for making sure it's warm enough, like last night. And then there's a lot of concern for making sure that it's not going to accidentally get really hot and roast all your seedlings, because one afternoon of the temperature exceeding 100 Fahrenheit or 38 Celsius and it could wipe them out. So I'm gonna get a few more pepper seeds in. I have another package of these markers in my house and I forgot to grab them out. So I think I'm just gonna label each tray, and then I'll add labels to the individual cups later. Hopefully I don't regret that. So here I'm starting 3 of my absolute most favorite peppers that I know I want a lot of, and I'll know I want to share with other people. So I had somebody recently ask me, how do you decide how much of each thing to start? I know that there are lots of charts out there that will tell you this many plants per person, blah, blah, blah. I actually do not think that those charts can possibly be very accurate. Now, maybe it's a ballpark and maybe that's all people want, in which case that's fine. But there's so many factors that can't account for. I've had the same exact variety of pepper or tomato or whatever that I've grown in different conditions. Like I've grown it in a raised bed with really established soil in my old farm, or I've moved here and grown it in a first year garden, which is not going to be as productive as a garden that the soil has been being worked on for 5 years. I've grown them in a raised bed with brand new healthy soil, and then obviously I've had a situation with contaminated soil in a raised bed. In a container, you're not going to get the same yield if you are not very diligently fertilizing with some sort of liquid fertilizer, like a Neptune's Harvest, like seaweed liquid that you add into the water. Now, if you are regularly fertilizing in a container, you can get a pretty good yield. But there are so many factors that go into what the same exact variety is going to yield. And then you think on the other end how people cook them. I'm a pretty experienced cook. I do a lot of things with the food that I grow. But how can I say how many pepper plants per person? I have a lot of questions about that. Are you drying them? Are you making paprika powders? Are you making seasonings? Are you pickling them? Are you eating them appetizer? Are you putting them up just to put into meals? Are you stuffing them? Like, what are you doing with them? That would greatly affect how many you should plant. That is why I am a big believer. I'm not saying anything against those charts. If anybody's made those charts and they love them, that's great. But I think you should have a very realistic expectation going into your garden planning that you're gonna have to put in a couple of years of growing to know exactly how much to plant. And here's the thing, like one year I planted way too many cucumber plants. We had like a crazy crop of cucumbers. We could, like, the pig was turning her nose up at cucumbers, dead serious. I made so many pickles that year that we did not make pickles again for 2 more years. It was ridiculous. We had so many cucumbers. But it actually worked out really well because the next year I had terrible cucumbers for whatever reason. It was like a weather thing. Just the conditions weren't quite right for cucumbers, and I ended up not having a ton. To me, that's the beauty of gardening, is that there's this ebb and flow throughout the years and it works out. And there are things that I think you just kind of have to learn, like how things grow in your area, how things grow in your soil, how they yield with your growing practices. And then you have to get them and find out how your family actually consumes them. Because a family like mine, we actually have 7 people in our household regularly. We have my stepdaughter who's here about 8 weeks out of the year. And of course, she's graduating this year, so that's going to be different moving forward. And as the years go by, my boys grow up into teenagehood. They eat a lot more. They eat so much. And we use tons of things, like we use spaghetti sauce and salsa, just canned tomatoes. Obviously, we're using a lot of tomato products. But Ben and I are the only ones regularly in the house that will eat a raw tomato. So that's going to affect how many plants we can actually get through. Now, I will grow 200 tomato plants and largely use all the tomatoes. Maybe some of them I give away. But I can use a lot of tomatoes in canning. Things like spaghetti sauce, because they cook down so much. But that's not to say that everybody needs 200 tomato plants, because if their family's not using a ton of tomato products, but they mostly just want to eat raw, they could probably get away with 10. And some people live in areas that there's no humidity. They don't have to prune a lot, and they can get a lot more yield off of one plant than I do. So you see, there are a lot of factors that go into that. And that's why I start getting that question a lot this time of year whenever people start asking me, well, how many plants should I plant? And my thing is that if you are very new to gardening, I don't think that you need to be worrying about replacing all of what you need of something. If you are brand new to gardening, I think you need to be focused on learning to become a gardener and learning how things grow. So grow a small amount of things, figure out what you like, figure out how you're going to use it, and then you're going to have an idea of how many plants you need. So here I am planting an entire tray of these Notapinios, which an entire tray is 32 cups, so I'm looking at 32 plants. I will not plant all of these, though I would say I may very well plant about 10 of them. 10 pepper plants here in South Carolina, once they really get kicking, which they'll produce a lot because it's hot here and peppers love the heat, is going to yield many gallons of these peppers. Now, Notapino peppers, it's Nadapeno, which is like nada, no, like Spanish for no. So it's no heat is what the name is playing on. And they are just like jalapenos. They have a very jalapeno flavor, but as the name implies, they don't have any heat. They're not hot. And we really, really like these. Now, I like semi-hot peppers. I don't like super hot peppers. My kids don't really like super hot peppers. And so I like to have these for 2 reasons. When I'm doing something like cowboy candy, I'm also going to grow a whole tray of Craig's Grande jalapenos. And I started like a handful of plants of some other kinds, like the pumpkin spice jalapenos, the lemon spice jalapenos, which are different colors. Craig's Grande is the staple, and Notapino is what I use to cut these things. So when I do something like cowboy candy or even pickled peppers, like pickled jalapenos, I'll use in the recipe, I'll use 2/3 of the Craig's Grande and 1/3 of the Notapino. And what you end up with is an overall mix that is not quite as spicy. So it kind of tones it down a little bit. They're also really, really great. My mouth is watering right now talking about this. That's so silly. They're also really great for stuffed jalapenos, so you can do like the cream cheese wrapped in bacon for people who don't like heat. So we'll do, usually when we do something like that, like poppers for a party, we'll do a tray of the ones with heat, and then we'll do a tray of the ones without heat. And not jalapenos kind of gives you that opportunity to make a lot of different jalapeno recipes without the heat, which is nice. Because some people just really can't handle hot stuff. I like hot stuff, but a couple of my kids really don't, and some of my friends really don't. Now here I'm sewing the tray of Craig's Grande jalapenos. I'm just making a little indentation here. I'm sewing the seeds about twice as deep as the seed is wide, which in this case is not very deep. I'm sewing 1 to 2 seeds per cup. If I have a cup where 1 seed was in there and it didn't come up, I'll just take one of the seedlings out of the cups where 2 comes up. And I'll equal out the tray and end up with 32 plants. I'll pinch off any extras, or I might end up separating them out and putting them in their own cup, depending on how I'm feeling that day. Craig's Grande jalapenos are my favorite jalapeno. I've tried a lot of the different ones. I would say I've probably grown about 10 different types of jalapenos over the year, but Craig's Grande's kind of settled in as my favorite good, solid, basic, hot jalapeno. It's a good, solid heat, and they're big. Because I really do like stuffing jalapenos, because I like slicing them up and putting them in recipes. One of the ways that I use jalapenos is I slice them up and freeze dry them. Keep a big jar next to the stove, and if I ever want to add a little heat to something, I just put a few of those peppers in. You can also dehydrate them and use them a very similar way. I will roast them and then put them in oil, which is really nice. You can add them into stuff like scrambled eggs with breakfast meats. Obviously you can take those out of that, like roasted out of that oil, and slice them up and put them on a taco or something like that. I really love jalapenos. I think they're just delicious. That's one of my favorite things to eat out of the garden. But again, I like to have the not hot option as well. So the Craig's Grande, because they are so large, it's just really nice for stuffing and things like that. They go really big. Some of them are literally like this big around and like this long, and that's nice whenever you're trying to stuff them. You could even potentially like scoop them out and stuff them with like meat and cheese and stuff like that, and just make really good stuff. And the last full tray of peppers, these are the only 3 varieties that I'm growing full trays of. Down here, the other day I was chatting with you guys and I was starting seeds, and I did 4 trays of peppers, and I did like 8 of each variety. So that'll give me the opportunity. I'll probably grow like 4 of each of those varieties. I'll give away the extras or sell them. And then these I'll grow a whole lot of. Now the last one. This is my favorite pepper. Shishito peppers. So I've shared before what I do with shishitos. I have a blog post about it. I'll actually put a link down below. But I blister these. You get a cast iron pan, super hot, and you want to poke holes in the pepper so they don't explode in your face. Ask me how I know that. And then you put them in the pan and blister them. They can kind of black spots. They kind of soften up a little bit, and then you make a garlic and lime aioli. So I usually have like homemade mayo that I made with our own eggs, and mix that in with some lime juice, maybe some cut up garlic, you can put paprika in it, or you could do lemon juice. You could dice up some cilantro and put it in it. You should make some sort of aioli dip, and those blistered shishito peppers with that aioli are life-giving. Like, they're so stinking good. So I will not grow 32 of these plants. They're extremely prolific, especially if they're grown in a place that's hot with good soil, which I plan to give them that. I will probably grow 8 of these plants, and that will be more than I need. Now I have preserved these before by freezing them. You don't get the same texture once they've been frozen, because what happens to a plant when it freezes is its cellular walls actually burst. And so that's why they're really mushy. That's why, like, plants the morning after the first frost are all mushy. That's why when you freeze a lot of plants in your freezer to try to preserve and then you thaw them, they're mushy. And the shishitos do that, but the flavor's still really good. So you can actually cut the caps off, blister them, and then freeze them. And then when you take them out of the freezer, they're gonna be like super fluffy and mushy. But you can mix them in with like some cream cheese or something and then use that as a spread, and you'll still get that great blistered shishito flavor even if you don't have the great snacking texture. So with 8 plants, I will have enough for us to eat this regularly. We eat this at least twice a week during the summer. Just with a meal. I'll usually start making them before a meal, and the kids and Maya and I will just snack on them and then we'll eat our meal. And then I'll freeze some, as mentioned, and any party that I go to, I will take blistered shishitos. Any party that I have, any dinner that I have, I will make them. And then I will give a lot of them away. So with 8 plants, that's gonna produce a lot of peppers. That's gonna produce basically all I could want of this. I'm starting 32 because I like sharing the plants with people. Because whenever I experience something I really like, I like to be able to give it to people so that they can experience it too. So somebody asked the other day, they're like, why didn't you say what varieties you started? And the thing is like, I'm not 100% sure what all I was gonna plant. And some of these things I was just starting because I don't know how many I'm gonna plant, but I will tell you what I've started up until this point. And I may still start some more. I'm still gathering all my seeds from the ends of the earth. I've got them all over the place. So as I mentioned, the pumpkin spice pepper, which is like an orange jalapeno. It's orange when it's ripe. I don't find these like crazy exceptional in flavor. They're not super huge, but I love to grow the orange and the yellow, which is the lemon spice, which I also started because whenever I make things like pickled peppers or cowboy candy, I like to put the different colors in because it's pretty and I like pretty colorful things. I did the Pippin's Golden Honey. I've grown that one before, but I didn't get a whole lot of them. So I've tried it, I know I liked it, but I've not played with those a lot and trying different things. So I'm excited to start those again. There's the lemon spice, I already said that one. I have the Siren Inye, there it is, don't know. That's new to me, so I can't tell you much about it. The Giuseppe pepper, also new to me, can't tell you much about it. The sweet cherry, that's one I'm really excited about. It's really small, round, and supposed to be very sweet with just a mild bit of heat to it, like not very much heat at all. It said that they could be slightly hot, but that mostly they're just very sweet, but they're round, like cherry types. There is a place that I went to once for pizza in Dallas, Texas. And do you ever eat, like, I know I'm a foodie, so things just stick with me. Oh, hey, brother man, what's up?
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Jess, you want to say hi?
Hi.
He wanted to know if Ben could have honey in his tea. Ben's tummy's been upset today. They're so sweet. So, I'm a foodie. Things stick with me. Do you ever have just like a food that really sticks with you? One of the things we like to do as people who grow food is we like to go to like really good restaurants where an actual chef is working with local ingredients. It's really the only time it's worth it to go out to eat, because any other time it's like we have better food at home, so we don't eat out very much. But whenever I get to go to a place that is like creative and has somebody very mindful of flavors and locally sourcing ingredients, it teaches me what I can do with my ingredients, because I'm reading their menu going, hey, I grow that, I grow that, I grow that. So I had this pizza and it had these like round sweet peppers that were pickled on it. And I'm thinking that sweet cherry pepper might be something that I could use to make something like that. So this is what we do. We try something somewhere and then we commit to the very long process of recreating it at home. The Aratama Pequeño pepper, which the Pequeño pepper is like a really small pepper that's very spicy, and this is supposed to be one that's not very spicy. Said occasionally you'll get a hot fruit, but most of them are sweet, so I'm trying that out. Here I have the Arroz con Pollo, which I have shared that pepper before. Of course, its name means chicken and rice. It's a seasoning pepper. And it's been a while since I've grown it, and just because I talked about it a lot years ago in a gardening tour, and then I couldn't get seeds for it again for a while. I'm excited to grow that one. I really enjoyed it when I did grow it a few years ago. It has a unique flavor. It's different than anything else I've tried. It's not spicy or sweet, but it's definitely a seasoning pepper. So that's the only thing I know how to say about it. Sweet banana peppers, that's Sweet Benjamin's favorite, so I got to put those in the garden for him. Ajvarski, which is a seasoning pepper that has really great flavor. Sugar Rush Peach, that's one I've grown for years now and really like, makes a really good hot sauce. Last year I fermented them and then mixed them together with peaches to make a hot sauce. It was really good. Sweet chocolate bell peppers, Lesia, which is a thick-walled red sweet pepper. Delicious. That was one of my favorites last year. I had to quit eating peppers like right at the peak of harvest because of my skin breaking out and needing to change my diet. And I had to pull back on everything. Now, since then, I've reintroduced some of these things. And thankfully, nightshades don't seem to cause me a problem. Obviously, I'm eating them in moderation. But that Lesia pepper, oh, I ate those a lot last summer. I have fish peppers, which is a variegated hot pepper. Really beautiful. Makes really good hot sauces. And I have Tabascos, which Tabascos are, of course, very well known for Tabasco sauce, which is a fermented pepper sauce. And that's what I make with them. I only started 4 plants of those. They're crazy prolific. And I might only plant 2 of those and it'll be enough because that's the only thing I'll do with them because they're pretty spicy. So I'm probably going to plant some more. I would like to do some more bell peppers, maybe something I can harvest green. I still have to start the seeds for my habanadas and my habaneros, which I will do both of those, like the jalapeno and not a pino. Habanadas are heatless. Habaneros are your classic hot pepper, which I like to mix them with peaches for jam, peach habanero jam, and sometimes I will cut that with some of the habanadas to get more of the pepper flavor without having to add more heat. And I don't have Marconis started yet. That's another of my favorite peppers. If there's anything else that I'm forgetting that you think I absolutely must grow, put it down in the comments below. But my focus on peppers now because they take longer to germinate. They will be moved out later. Typically I'm gonna move tomatoes out maybe 2 weeks after the threat of frost has passed, whereas I'll probably wait 4 weeks for peppers. People will ask me sometimes what's the trick with peppers because they have failed. Don't move them out too early. That is the make it or break it trick that I have found with peppers. If you put them out at the same time you put your tomatoes out right after the frost danger has passed, you're probably still getting nights that are too cool for peppers to thrive. From my experience, which I actually accidentally, the first year I grew a lot of peppers, put them out much later. I didn't plant them out until May. May was probably 6 weeks after our last frost because the bed wasn't built yet. We were still building our garden. This is years ago, obviously. And had a bumper crop. I mean, just had peppers like crazy all year. And then the next few years, the garden was already built. So I just planted all my peppers out when I planted my tomatoes out right after the frost had passed. And I couldn't grow peppers to save my life. For 2 years, I hardly harvested anything. Maybe at the end of the season, if the puny plants had held on through the summer, when the summer got really hot, they would take off. And I would harvest right before winter came. But I really didn't, I had no success. And then I did some research and I was reading and seeing that even just a couple of nights below 50 Fahrenheit or 10 Celsius can actually stunt them for the rest of the growing season. And since then, I just made the rule that I don't plant peppers out until at least a month after our last frost. If it gets to be a month after the last frost and the 10-day forecast still has nights below 50 Fahrenheit or 10 Celsius, I just wait. And since I have done that, I have been up to my ears in peppers. I would say that's probably the #1 tip that I could give you on that is make sure you're putting them out when it's warm enough for them. Oh my gosh, sometimes I do these videos where I talk so much in a row and I know I'm giving so much valuable information. You're probably writing notes down and it will probably help you and maybe you'll be up to your ears in peppers too, but I gotta edit this and just hear myself talk so much. Y'all are awesome for listening to me. I'm gonna head back in the house so Maya can get back out here and work. I think he took off because he saw I was shooting and didn't want to interrupt. But thank you for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.